Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I am the Evesham Gamer, Teg, and this is kind of a really heartfelt video, to be perfectly honest with you. Let me shut this door. So, okay, this isn't strictly a video game video. There is going to be some video game footage towards the end of this video, but this video is basically my thoughts, not my thoughts, my memories really, of a incredible man, one of the best bosses that I have to frankly say I ever had, who sadly lost his life back in this day. So when this video is uploaded, August the 7th, 2002. That man was James B. Ward. So it's James Ward, who used to be the proprietor, so one of the owners of the White Horse in Hascombe in Surrey. I just felt it was probably time that I did something like this video, on the basis that I've never seen any tribute or memory that's been posted online anywhere for James, other than the very old now, which aren't, they weren't posted by anyone on social media because social media wasn't around back then. But there's not been anything since. I've not seen anything other than news articles which covered his very untimely death out there on the Solent, down in the south of England. So why now? Why am I doing this? Well, James and my past especially frequently come back to me. Back in the days when I had I think I had a Sega Saturn, I think, but I was living in the village of Hascombe, and I used to work at the White Horse in Hascombe for quite a few years. I think from sort of, I don't know, perhaps 1996, maybe 1995, as early as that. I mean, for example, years can't remember off the top of my head, but I can tell you that these were obviously prior to James's untimely death, of which I'll get into very briefly in a little while. But for example, you can pick the year really here. So Spice Girls Wannabe, To the Moon and Back by Savage Garden. Those France '98, the Football World Cup. Around those sort of periods really. And I used to be a kitchen porter there. I started there not that long after my brother got a job there. Bearing in mind my brother's 2 years younger than me, you have to imagine that, crikey, I think he was 14 when he started working there. And the two owners, Sue and James, I'm going to try my best here because sometimes I can slip up, but what I mean by that is that I'm going to try my best to not go into any personal details about any particular person that I mention here on in, because I could tell you some stories about that pub back in the day. But I'm going to keep to the facts and keep to some good memories, of James. So James, when he passed, was 50 years old. If he was still alive today, he'd be 73. James's untimely death unfortunately happened, I think, well, let's put it this way: Billie Piper and Chris Evans, so Billie Piper being the famous actress, singer, etc., and Chris Evans, the famous DJ, TV producer. You saw him on The Big Breakfast. You saw him on, Don't Forget Your Toothbrush, and TFI Friday, and Top Gear, and many things. Those two guys, when Chris and Billie got together, they moved into Hascombe Grange. They bought Hascombe Grange, and very quickly they integrated themselves into the local community, and obviously befriended James and Sue at the White Horse. So frequently you would find Billie and Chris in the pub, along with people like Danny Baker, and a lot of Chris's friends at the time, and Billie's friends. So that aside, James, to me, I won't ever forget, he always used to say, "How we doing?" So he'd come in and there's me, just a lowly little kitchen porter being paid £17 a shift plus tips, because obviously we used to get tips then. And the way that kind of worked was James was like, well, any tips you get, that just gets divvied out to everyone. So, for example, the bar staff used to get their own tips, and then the restaurant and bar tips, the restaurant, sorry, would give tips to the kitchen and the waitresses. And yeah, James used to let us have that, and we used to get paid in cash at the end of the shift. And James was always there at the bar. Sometimes he'd be serving, other times he'd just be checking on the locals, having a couple of beers maybe with the locals and regulars. A couple of names stick out in my head here now. Chris Patrick, who sadly we lost. It was Gordon, we lost him too. Chris Hills. There was Roy Kelsey. There was Little Michael. There was I'm trying to think of them. There was Sharon and her husband. I forget their names now, the surnames. Oh, the list. The Oranges, the family up the back there called the Oranges. They used to come down. Les, Chris. There was lots of other Chris. There's all different names of people. Oh, and the village. I call him the village idiot, Andy, who to be honest with you, James didn't like. We're going back to a point here where fruit machines only took tokens, and that was in the mid-90s. Even the White Horse had that, and it was Handicap, the machine they had in there. James didn't like the fruit machine being there mainly because a lot of the staff were backpackers, so Kiwis, Box, and Aussies used to come and work there. A couple of names stick out from my head: Megan, Aaron, Hayden. So and people, and a few of those used to pump their 17 quid or whatever it was into the fruity, and then he was more concerned about them losing their money than it was his concern, one of his concerns. So he actually eventually got rid of the fruit machine. And James was a very, very well liked person. He had his passion, absolute passion, was boating, specifically yachting, and he had his own yacht called the Nausicca. I never actually got to see it in person. And James did invite me on a couple of occasions to go, which was nice of him. I recall him asking me, or at least alluring to that. And James and Sue used to live in the pub. They apparently they were an item at one point, but they kept after they split up. They kept a very professional business relationship, and as I say, James used to mingle around the pub, come and check on everyone. He always had a pencil behind his ear. And he was always welcoming. I don't think I ever saw James pissed, ever. He would be out there in the garden, talking to people, as can be seen in the picture that I uploaded as a post. As you can see him with a young Chris Evans and Billy Piper. That was actually, and I must give a shout out actually, and bear with me here because I should have had this open before. The person that allowed me to use that photograph, which admittedly is online and you can just take it and use it. So I want to give a big shout out to Paul Burgman, who is a professional photographer who's done some work with a very famous Sunday newspaper, amongst other things. So thank you, Paul, very much for the usage of that photo, which I'll obviously put thanks as well in the description as well below. James's other passions, for example, other than yachting, because he was definitely a sporty type person in that sense. I never saw him running though, I have to say, but he liked his cars. And he had I don't know what year it was, but it was definitely the Porsche 911 Turbo 3.3. Now, that particular vehicle was made between 1980, bear with me because I put a couple of notes here, 1977 to 1989. So I'm thinking it was around about the 85 model. Beautiful. It was a very, very dark blue. Black leather interior, went like shit off a shovel, sounded beautiful. And one of the jobs that I used to have, other than being a kitchen porter, was doing random jobs for James and Sue, and one of them was to clean their cars, and they used to chuck me an extra £5 or a tenner. I think it was like £5 or something. Maybe I think it was actually a tenner. And I personally used to be meticulous about how I cleaned it, and we didn't have specific products. James was just like, use what you've got in the kitchen. So we had glass cleaner, and then we had Mr. Sheen, or at least in like an unbranded polish, and we used to use that in it. But the cars used to come up fantastic, absolutely. James used to love it, absolutely love his car being cleaned. The other vehicle that I used to clean, I mean, basically many vehicles. Must shout out to one of James and Sue's probably most memorable employees from the White Horse Hascombe, and that is Bertin de Bon, who sadly doesn't work there anymore. I understand he's still around somewhere, but Bert used to claim that he was best friends with Michael Jackson. You know what? To this day, I don't think anyone would. I don't think anyone either believed him, but they didn't not believe him either. James used to just laugh about it. He absolutely did. He was just like, he just let Bert carry on with it. But Bert's another story. So, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Bert. He was quite a short Afro-Caribbean French guy, absolutely diamond guy. But we used to clean his car as well, and Sue's car, which was at the time a Range Rover Vogue, a very nice example as well. But James loved his Porsche. He gave me a few lifts occasionally when I'd finished my shift, or one of my shifts, especially a lunchtime shift, down to Godalming, so I could meet some friends. And if he was coming back, he'd say, just give it a shout, and I'll grab you, which didn't happen very often because obviously I'll be staying late and James had a pub to run. But yeah, and I wasn't friends with James, but he was my boss and he treated me with respect. He also acknowledged the fact that if I had issues with something, he would acknowledge them. We're talking about a situation of where everything was cash in hand. I remember asking as a young lad, James, if we were paying tax on this, and he said, yeah, we do that with behind the scenes, but things were different back then. So I don't know whether that was true or not, but I am not saying that James was dishonest. He was honest through and through. And another funny thing that I remember, so weekends obviously in any pub are very, very busy, because of where the location of the White Horse and Hascombe is. So it's on the I think it's the B2130. It's the main road from Godalming to Cranley, and it's probably the only pub on that main road. So as you can imagine, it's a gold mine. And speaking of gold, one of the bar staff, who is now, like, I think he's a director or something of his own big company now, a gentleman by the name of Connell O'Hara. Admittedly, us two didn't necessarily get on that well back then. We did, but we didn't. I used to wind him up. Sorry, Connell. I know you're doing well for yourself now, and you may well be thinking, well, yeah, I didn't think he'd get that far. I've got far enough, mate. But maybe you're not thinking that if you see this. But, all respect to you, Connell, who had a fucking lovely BMW M3, a red one with all the fucking spoilers on it and the body kit. And a nice sound system. But that's another story, because I can easily detract from James here. But Connell once said, and I'll never forget it, he said, especially on a Saturday night and a Sunday, he said, if you look carefully at James's eyes, you'll see pound signs rolling around in them. And absolutely, because, you're doing 300 to 600 covers on a Sunday. I know, because I used to wash up all the dishes, all the utensils, more often than not, it was just one of us doing it. And I used to do that shift. So I'd start at, I don't know, 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning on a Sunday, and I wouldn't finish quite often until 6 o'clock, if not even then. And then I'll start a next shift. So I'll be working 12 hours, 13-hour shifts sometimes on a Sunday. But I wouldn't have given it up for the world. James used to come down occasionally and check on me. And obviously whoever else used to do who would be around. I'd like to sort of name drop a little bit here now, okay? So a few names that I remember other than what I've already mentioned. So names of people that used to work there when I was there. So there was Trish and Jason. Jason was behind the bar. Trish was like the head waitress. We had Lindsay and her sister, but Lindsay was there for longer. Her sister wasn't there very long. We had Joycey God rest her soul, she's gone now. Joycey was a lovely lady. But Tony, he used to also do Joyce's job as well, which was kind of like a kitchen assistant, you know, let's call him a sous chef, something like that. Pammy, or Pam, she was a cleaner in the pub. Toby, or Toby Lakin, he was an absolute legend, that guy. Whew. I'll get to some of the beers that James used to put on there in a minute. I mentioned Connell. There was Ben, he was there when I started, a ginger guy, and his sister as well, who used to live opposite the pub pretty much. We also had Wayne, Scouser Wayne, who used to live in the village. He was there for a little while. Then there was Doug the Thug, Andrew Douglas, and his school friend, Andrew Morris. Yeah. I mean, seriously, the reason why I just did a deep yeah was because Andrew was, I think it was 14 or 15 when he started there. And he had the deepest voice you could imagine for a lad. I mean, he later went on to completely harass Duncan at the Sun in Godalming for years. And I think he still fucking hovers around it like that. But, I mean, he was definitely an oddball, Andrew Morris. I mean, I don't have everything against him now. I mean, but if I saw him in Godalming, I would certainly go up to him and go, yeah. Because it was a deep fucking voice that boy had. James didn't particularly like him. I know that much. But hey, James isn't here anymore. He can't speak for himself. So I, you know, take that with a pinch of salt. Who else? We had Jack, who was like another kitchen porter. He was basically, how do I put it? He was like a goth guy, very quiet. But me and Andrew Douglas and a few others used to joke that when Jack got angry, the seas would boil, the hills behind the pub would shake. Just a little jokes, the things you have a laugh with there. And then the other chefs, other than Bert, and one of Bert's sayings was, "Now you are working. Martin, shut the fuck up." Actually, he didn't ever swear, Bert. "Martin, shut up and do some work." Yes, he was like that, because I used to just rabbit. I was a young lad, didn't think before I spoke, and I still don't a lot of the time, even though Joyce told me that I should do that. God rest her soul. But yeah, and then there was Ian Hook. He was another chef. But when I first started, there was a guy called Martin McGregor. Now, I have no idea if Ian and Martin are still around. I like to think that they are. Who else? We had Giles, who used to work behind the bar. Who else? I mean, Steffi, she worked basically second or along the same lines as Trish. There was Melody. She was another one that used to work in the kitchen and she used to do waitressing. Then there was Emily, who was Andrew Douglas's sister. She used to work there. Obviously my brother. But unfortunately for me, and you know, going back now a bit to with James and my relationship with James. So my brother, he, there's no other way to put it. He was caught stealing money. What had happened is that they left a purse there with some money out and taken notes of the note of the number on the banknotes, and they thought it was my brother, and then he took that money and then he got caught. I mean, he was like 14 at the time. As you can imagine, that put me in a very, very difficult position moving forward, because everyone was like, well, if he's doing it, you're his brother, you're in on it as well. Which, to be honest with you, I was, but not at that time, and I wasn't stealing money. But what I'm going to tell you right here, because we're going back fucking many years now, is the truth be known, an awful lot of people were on the take there. They used to leave money upstairs in the tray after cashing up. They used to leave money all over the place, and people were taking it. And I know they were taking it because I saw them taking it. But how could I possibly say anything to James and Sue when I was already under the microscope because of what my brother did? It was a very difficult time. After what happened with my brother, the tone changed towards me, because James's tone changed towards me, as did Sue's family. You know, some of her family that used to run, like, I'm not going to call it, his name was Des, but that was Sue's dad. Bert used to call him Dad. In fact, we all used to refer to him as Dad. And then David as well, Sue's boyfriend, her daughter Lisa. So, you know, it was, yeah. It was difficult. It was difficult. And that leads kind of a little bit on to kind of when I fell out with James. Now, James was a very forgiving person, but he certainly stuck to his guns if he didn't like someone. I didn't help myself too much there. I don't recall much about it, and I can't remember what year it is, but I'm thinking it was around about 2000, 2001. I'd been up at the White Horse in Hascombe, not as an employee, because I hadn't been working there for some time at that point. And I'd had a few too many beers. Bearing in mind, it's about a 15, 20-minute walk from my house. So anyway, I don't recall what it was, what set it off, but James was behind the bar, and I kicked off with him, and I ended up calling him a ginger. See you next Tuesday. Called him a load of swear words, and he said, "You're barred. You're barred. I don't ever want to see you back here," effectively. And that hurt me. That the next day, the day after, obviously, I was like, I can't ever go to the White Horse again, and I really like it there. I don't work there anymore. Time went by, and we're getting probably about 2 months, maybe 3 months before James's very untimely passing. I emailed him. I'll tell you what, this is true, I did, because his email address was jamesbward at virgin.net. Now, those of you, if you do watch this, who knew James, you would know that's his email address. You know what I'm saying is true. I emailed James to apologise. I don't recall. No, I definitely went up there to speak to him. But in the first instance, it was trying to break the ice and to apologise for what I'd said to him, and that I didn't mean it, that I was in a difficult place in my life at the time, and I hadn't, I take back everything. James eventually, after a few emails, probably about half a dozen, James accepted my apology and allowed me to go to the pub. And when I did go there, I spoke to him again in person and apologised emphatically. And he forgave me. It wasn't long after that, probably a month, when the untimely accident on the Solent happened. What happened to James was he was out on his yacht, again, I mentioned at the very beginning, the Nausicca, and the boom basically swung out, hit him in the back of the head, knocked him into the water. I believe, by all accounts, it was pretty much instant that he died. The unfortunate thing was the other 5 or 6 people on the boat, one of which, including Chris Evans, nobody was trained for life-saving or to be able to operate the vehicle, the boat, or the radio system. I don't think, these people obviously have to live with this, have had to live with this, but I don't believe, from what I understand, that there was anything they could do anyway. Even if they had been able to do that, they don't think it would have been able to save James's life. Very unfortunate to happen to such a very kind, open, honest, and, one of the good guys. James's funeral was held on the 20th of August, 2002, with over 300 people at the church in Hascombe. I believe James's headstone is there. I believe that's where he's buried. I'm not entirely sure. I'd expect so. Since then, I've never heard from anyone about memories about James, and it would be so great if anyone that knew James would comment on this video, because I think it's important to remember people. And I don't remember James for being an arsehole to me, because he wasn't an arsehole to me. He was being a genuine individual and a businessman. I deserved to be barred from that pub, and that was it. And I accept that. I accepted it not long after I got barred. But James is now officially a legend. And I hope that some people are keeping his memory alive, because, James was a pillar of the community. He did a very lot for a lot of people. And I celebrate you, James. I'm celebrating you on this, the 23rd anniversary of your passing. And if you were still here, I definitely would have still been in contact with you. Speaking of beers, before I finish and move on to the last part of this video, which is the gameplay, which you've probably been wondering what that's about. The White Horse used to have some fantastic beers. James was a bitter drinker when he did drink, predominantly. But back then we had some fantastic beers on. For those of you that remember this, Kilkenny on draft. For those of you not aware of what Kilkenny is, well, you know it's a drink, but what it was very similar to Caffrey's, which you can still get in the north of England today, which is, especially in Doncaster anyway. That's the only place I've been that had it anyway, in the past couple of years. Lowenbrau or Löwenbrau lager, far better than the wife beater, but they did have the wife beater on tap there, Stella Artois, and Foster's as well. Some of your old favourites, some Hog's Back drinks there, but the pub itself was effectively run, or like, it was leased, I think, or something to Jameson. So I can't remember how it worked, but they were Ind Coop. So if you wonder what that hand signal is, or a hand picture on the thumbnail is about, that's the logo from Ind Coop. Those of you proper beer drinkers will know that. But you know, all the drinks, such as, you know, James always used to make sure the beer lines were properly cleaned. You know, none of this, oh God, I can taste beer line cleaner in my drink, from any customers. If you did taste that, you probably would be in hospital not long after, trust me. He used to keep his cellar fucking clean. He was bang on it with the stock. He was bang on it with everything. James, out to you. You're sorely missed, and you're still remembered, my friend. My boss, my old boss. Because we weren't friends. We were, you know, I was his staff member. I was a member of staff. But, you know, anyway, in closing, now you're going to be seeing just a little bit of Forza Horizon 5 gameplay of me just doing a bit of driving in the Porsche 911 3.3 1983. It's the closest I could find to what James's car was. I can't remember, as I say, what years his was. I think it was 1985. The car isn't the exact same colour. James was a darker blue, but other than that, I've done a number plate for him as well, which says JB Ward, which I think is a nice little, you know, a nice little homage to James himself. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this. Enjoy this little bit of gameplay, probably about 5 or so minutes, not too much. It's just thoughts of gameplay. But it's an homage to James. It's an homage to all those that we have lost that used to work at the White Horse in Hascombe. And it's an homage to all those that still continue to work at the White Horse in Hascombe, because James's legacy is still there. James probably still walking the halls of the White Horse in Hascombe. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Checking on people, whispering in their ear, saying, how we doing? And then getting his pencil out and writing something down. Anyway, until the next one, look after yourselves, people, and I'll see you later. Take care.
Turn around when it is safe to do so. In 400 meters, you will arrive at your destination. You have arrived at your destination.